Hello, it's Yaminah Legohn with the Sundial, and I'm sitting with Edwin Ramirez from the Performance Ensemble, who just wrapped up the Museum of Her, and he's here to let us know what is on the horizon. How long have you been a part of the Performance Ensemble?
So I became a member last semester when I first began assisting Dr. Jade, and this semester is when I became a co-director.
Oh, wow. So is this your first time, like, co-directing? Your directing debut? Is this the first one?
For CSUN, it is my first director debut. I also direct theaters for high school, but this is my first official college level theater, so it was still really exciting and new.
Wow. So do you plan on taking your directing skills to the next level now that you've done this?
Absolutely, I love directing. I love to create. I love collaborating with other people who are just have like this creative vision in mind. I'm just putting it together and seeing this final outcome.
That's great. That's so great. So let's go back to talking about the Museum of Her and the performance ensemble and the process of putting it together. Now, I know there was the end where you everyone had rehearsal towards the end, but how did the idea, the theme come about? The Museum of Her. What was going on at the time where you guys decided we're going to do it on this? This is going to be our theme.
So every year, every academic year, the performance ensemble takes on one universal theme. And this year, it was the topic of influence. And so in the fall, our focus was just tackling influence, so such as under the influence, social media influence, anything that had to do with influence, we tackled it in our show. And so carrying it into this semester, we actually had a collaboration with the Comms 635 class, the Feminist Perspective class with Dr. Creo Rowe. And that being a feminist perspective class really inspired our theme with creating a feminist-focused theater with the theme of influence.
Mm. And with the climate that's going on right now with women's rights and all of those things, do you feel that this addressed those issues? Do you feel like this has played a part in advocacy?
I think it played a major role in advocacy. I think right now is such an important time to talk about women's rights. We even wore all white for our costumes, which is the color for women's suffrage and women's rights. So I think it all just played a right role. And considering the political climate we are in right now, it was absolutely important to have this show now.
Nice. So I want to go a little bit more in depth about your piece specifically. How was the process of your piece? I know it was about stitching and women and your mother and sewing. I mean, not stitching, but sewing. How did that come about? Because I was very vulnerable. So how were you able to reach that point?
So the scene that I created that I wasn't in did deal with a lot with sewing, and the reason for that is because growing up, I come from a family of upholsterers, and so my mom has always been like this master seamstress, and my dad has been always this master upholsterer. And then when I first started college, my first degree was in fashion design and technologies, and that's how I learned to sew. And I learned to sew through working in our family's upholstery shop, and so sewing had always been a major role in my life and a connection that I had with my mom. There would be moments where I would go before to go compete for a speech and debate tournament, and I would like rip a seam in my pants, and I'd be like, "Mom, please help me stitch this together," and quickly stitch together. So aside from just stitching together like my pants, it'd be like stitching together like my state of mind in that
Right,
moment. And
right.
so I always loved the idea of like stitching and sewing, and the coupled with women's empowerment and my mother, that's what really inspired that sewing scene.
Oh, nice. Well, the cool part is that you also have movement and choreography, and not just in your pieces. There was dance in other people's pieces, and singing, and elevator episodes. Like, how were you guys able to determine which piece was going to go where? Because what was cool about this piece, since the exhibit passed, it was an exhibit, so you had to go to different areas around the school to watch a performance. So how were you able to determine which piece went where?
So the first three scenes that we really put together were the childbirth scene that happened in the stairwell. We had the space scene, which happened in the elevator, and then we also had the sleepover scene, which happened on the third floor of Manzanita Hall. And those scenes, I told my cast, I was like, go figure it out. Find a space that inspires you, feel it out, and then show me something at the end of the class period. And so that's how it happened. But as we continued adding scenes to the show, we became more deliberate. So, for example, with our cast member Alicia, she did a feminist scene on femicide. We told her we wanted you to be in the conference room, specifically standing on the table, because it plays like this role where all these rules and legislations and laws that occur on women's bodies are always discussed in these conference rooms. They are discussed from a circle of men in these circles, and so we kind of wanted to play on that, right? Have Alicia stand on this table confronting this conference style format.
Wow, that's really deep. Now that the performance is over, what has been the reviews or the feedback from the audience? Like, what have you been hearing about it?
I've only heard so many positive things from it. It's really rewarding to hear so many people feeling impacted, both emotionally in a positive way, and just feeling so moved by what we had to say with everything that we put on.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm so great. I'm just so happy that it was a success. And now, what's your next move? Now that, the school semester is almost over, you're graduating, what's the next move?
The next move is pursuing a PhD and
Okay.
hopefully moving to Tampa, Florida, to the University of South Florida and putting on shows there.
Okay, well, I am so happy to hear that, and congratulations on everything and your success.
Thank
And
you.
go Matadors! You're about to get that master's and go for your PhD. So I'm super proud of you,
Thank
and I want to
you.
thank you so much for coming on and letting us know what's on the horizon.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, we're back. I'm Yaminah Legohn with the Sundial, and I have Dr. Jade C. Huell, who's going to tell us about what is on the horizon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. You look nice and colorful.
Thank you, always.
Now, we know that you are the director of the Performance Ensemble,
That's right.
and you just wrapped up the Museum of Her. How are you feeling about the results of the production?
Well, first of all, I'm just very relieved. There has been a couple of productions this semester on my plate, and so I'm happy to have everything kind of come to a close. But as you know, in theater, it's on to the next thing a lot of times, but I try to make time to just kind of reflect on what we do as well. So It's been a hectic semester,
Yes.
but it's also been a very rewarding one.
Awesome. So, with the Museum of Her, what inspired you to come up with that theme?
Well, knowing that I had a different production in the theater department, I knew that I needed to be creative with the second production from the ensemble. I didn't want to do a production that was going to, be conventional, right? I didn't want to do a production that looked and felt like a traditional theatrical piece. And so I thought I let myself be under the impression that if we small segments in various places and various different with the ensemble doing work in different places, some solos, some group pieces, some duets, that would allow me to be able to kind of like constrain the performance a bit and have a little bit more control over the final outcome and also have a little bit of flexibility. What ended up happening was it ultimately expanded what happened in the production and really made the piece more dynamic and a kind of more immersive experience for the audience members and I think too for the performers. So yes, so the plan didn't quite match up with what the reality was, but it definitely made things more possible and that more and more things became possible as we worked through the pieces.
Awesome. Well, with that expansion, and even though it didn't go exactly as planned, did something manifest for you where you were like, oh, I'm going to use this for my next performance, or oh, I didn't know it was going to turn out like that, or better than what you thought? Like, how did you feel when you saw that it didn't go your way, and what kind of creative thoughts came from that?
Right. Well, I think first off, I should back up a little bit. Nothing ever goes my way, especially when you're working with an ensemble of students who are non-actors for the most part, right? We might get an actor or two in the group, but we have had people from math, people from engineering. We've had artists, like, visual artists. We've had folks from Chicana studies or gender studies, right? All the comms, of course, all the range of creatives that show up. And so it just always depends on who comes to the course, who comes to the club, who wants to show off what they want to show off, right? And so we try to highlight each student in a way that, makes them shine. but also allows them to collaborate with others in a meaningful way. So it never really quite goes exactly what you think about in your mind. And so I have learned over the years to just kind of roll with it. But I think for this particular semester, the kind of theme became collaboration in a different and more sustainable way, because we had several different collaborations that led to the end product, right? And so when you think about, just the nature of collaboration, you're never going to know what you're going to get, right? You have to expect the unexpected, because when two people come together, or two organizations, or two classes, or two whatever come together, you never know what that can make. So I learned a lot, but I also, I think I learned a little bit more about letting go, even more so than I've had to in the past.
Letting go, that's a major component, is letting go.
Yes.
And so as an artist, because you are an artist yourself, and you're working with people, some people are artists, some people are not artists, how do you feel that you're expanding on your artistry working with the Performance Ensemble?
Yeah, I tend to I do think of myself as an artist first before a lot of the other categories that people might attribute to me, because my name is Doctor, right? So they might think that I'm a scholar first, right? I see myself as an artist first. I've always been an artist first, right? Always been on stage, right? Always done something creative. And so for me, I think of the performers and the ensemble and the communities that they all come from as, toolboxes, right? They come in with lots of different skill sets, with lots of different instruments, right? Yes. And so I think the thing about using the ensemble as a kind of place for me to locate the artwork that I like to do is to really delve into what it means to investigate those toolboxes that show up, right? To let people come up with talents and skills and things that they don't even know they had. One of our ensemble members wanted to just do the logistics for the show. She didn't want to be in the performance, no matter how much I tried to push her towards that. And she apparently never had much experience in that realm. She just wanted to kind of work on that. And so she was able to really run the curators who led the audience from exhibit to exhibit to exhibit all around, and come to find out it is a lot of stuff that has to align in order to do that properly. And so she really expanded her skill set. And so I think, if we do this thing right, we do it in a way that allows people to use the skills that they have, but also to cultivate new skills.
Yes, definitely. And I loved how there was dance and there was music and there was singing and so much different aspects of creativity and artistry. So you being an artist, that definitely showed through your work. And you had a lot of people that came out to support. So how was the marketing process, getting the word out? You had the dean there, you had your colleagues there for both nights. It was a great turnout. So how did you feel about that, and how was the process in marketing that?
Well, we knew that it was going to be a little bit of a different marketing process than usual. Normally what we do is we market it primarily to comm students, because we want to cultivate a curiosity and an appreciation around the performance studies area in communication studies. And so we really want to make room and make sure that we have the students there to see what it is that we do. This time, things had to work a little bit differently because of the unconventional space that we were using. So we couldn't just open it up to all students, even though essentially that's what we did. But we did know that we had to have a head count. So we did an RSVP system. Where people just, it didn't cost any money or anything, but they came and they went to the QR code and registered for the show. And so that way we can kind of anticipate how many people we'd be dealing with. And at first we just released a few tickets, and then we had to release some more, and then we had to release some more. But I really think that is due to the diversity of the students that were in the ensemble. because they came from so many different places, some inside of our department, some outside of our department, the connections that they have. I invited a lot of students from my poetry course, which is a general education course, which means that that students from all over the university take that class. And so it was a little bit more diverse of word of mouth than normal. And obviously people bring their friends and their families. And so people come from the various communities that they come from, and then they end up in our audiences. And so, yes, it was a very, very diverse audience, but also a pretty large audience. So we were pretty happy with the turnout.
Nice. Yes, it was a great turnout. And so, and thank you for sharing that with me. And I'd like to wrap our interview with asking you, what does Museum of Her mean to you, especially in the climate that we are in today?
I had the opportunity this semester to direct 2 pieces that were primarily focused on the experiences of women. The first one, young women. The second one, all women, right? I just think that's so needed right now. We are at a time where women are losing their rights, stripping away rights is happening, in our country. We are currently under a fascist takeover. And so in this environment where women's rights continue to be threatened, where women have less rights than their mothers did, when we are hearing the same kind of old rhetoric that our grandmothers protested against being recycled, that it's more important than ever to really think about the experiences of women, to think about what women do for our society, to think about the history of labor and the history of resilience that women represent, to think about the expansiveness of what it means to be a woman outside of just what their given sex is, right? And so I think all of those things are important to our contemporary understanding of what womanhood is, or what it means to be a girl and a woman in this world. And so I really cherish, the opportunity to have been able to do that and to share that with the students in the community at CSUN.
Awesome. Well, that is powerful. And thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
Because it is needed. And I know it's the end of the semester and everybody's ready to go. But we look forward to seeing your work in the fall and what you do over the summer, because I definitely will be checking it out.
All right. Maybe you'll be a star.
Oh, maybe. Well, thank you so much for letting us know what's on the horizon. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'm Yaminah Legohn with The Sundial.